got playoff football, obviously. We have other kind of big news. What was the big news?
Bunch of new coaches. Brady lost.
Why is everybody freaking out about this Rooney rule? Like, you got to hire a black, or you got to like interview a black.
Well, it's not about, yeah. So a lot of times.
Someone explain this to me. It sounds like horse shit.
The rule was implemented because a lot of black coaches weren't getting any coaching opportunities. It was implemented by, I guess, the Rooney family, which owned the Steelers, which, ended up finding Mike Tomlin, ended up finding a lot of, great coaches.
And the idea was, okay, maybe you already have your guy in mind, but this guy could still come in and impress you, and then somebody else who interviewed him goes to another team and then remembers, oh, I interviewed Mike Tomlin. He was great.
Which has happened a lot. Yeah. Like a lot of times you see these names, just the fact that names are being thrown around this time, it's a lot of times it's almost like a job interview where even if I don't get the Giants job or the Browns job, whatever, like just being thrown in that name. Like if you go back and
talk to each other, they're like, "Hey, this kid was really impressive.
Exactly.
We already wanted to go with him, but he was really good. You should check him out." Yeah. Okay, go on.
But there were 3 black head coaches when it was implemented in '99 or whatever the fuck year it was, and there are still 3 black head coaches right now. And there is, I don't think it's racism or whatever, but it is like Eric Bieniemy is the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs.
How many coaches are there in the? How many teams are there?
32.
So what is the black population in America?
11%, but
what is?
But it's not just head coaching though. It's not just head coaching. Hold on.
But the black population in America is 11%.
Yeah.
And what is the population? What is the percentage of head
10%.
coaches? So it's on it. We're doing the right thing.
But it's not just head coaching though. Like it's about there's dozens of coaching jobs per team.
Right.
So even if you're not a head coach, like getting a coordinator job, getting a special teams job, a wide receiver coach job, whatever the fuck it is, it's about getting black coaches and giving them opportunities that they most likely wouldn't have had if it wasn't for this rule. And you're right, there's still only 3 coaches, but there's a lot more black faces in
But
these
people are basically
staff.
saying the Rooney Rule isn't doing anything,
right?
If it hasn't actually changed the number of black head coaches.
Well, it doesn't need to because they're the percentage of the league that they should
I
be.
get if you're 70% of a league's players, but only 10% of the coaches. There's some.
How many white people? What percentage of white people are there in the country?
60.
70%, let's say.
Yeah.
What percentage of white people play in the NBA?
20, 10, whatever.
Less.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need the white person rule?
No, but
that's not. I mean,
can make an easier
that's definitely
case.
not the way people will look at it, though. I mean, the way they're looking at it is, a lot of times you need to make sure that.
Why does diversity only work one direction? It's so weird.
It's not. It's not just.
I don't listen. I don't
like why. I don't understand. Like,
I don't think I'm the guy who champions diversity for the sake of diversity. That's not me. But I can understand how basketball and sports playing is so easily a meritocracy.
Right.
Like I have tryouts. All of you can come. Any white guy who's Asian can get him in the door. Come in the door. And Adam Thielen, the receiver for the Vikings, he was the guy that nobody gave a fuck about, and he just proved himself and proved himself and proved himself. Good, done. That's fine. Coaching is like there's only 32 opportunities. There are no auditions. There are no tryouts. You come to an interview.
Yeah.
And the example I would use to say, oh, something's a little not racist, but we could figure out something is Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, who have a crazy offense. Andy Reid is the head coach, but he has given this guy the seal of approval. This guy's going to be a great fucking coach. And the people who are getting jobs over him, I'm just like, really?
Yeah. Like the Giants interviewed him, and I guess the guy they hired was
the
Joe
Giants
Judge.
interviewed him.
Yeah, they interviewed him.
Cowboys didn't. The Cowboys interviewed Marvin Lewis, who sucks dick.
He's the worst.
Marvin Lewis, the black guy.
Bengals.
Right?
Yeah,
to meet the Rooney Rule.
Right.
And then their next interview, they hired that coach.
Now, question. Let's go with the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
So the Giants interviewed Bieniemy,
Mm-hmm.
and then they ended up hiring the wide receiver coach.
Well, technically, he was the special teams coach. He was only the wide receiver coach this year.
Well, that means
And he
he's
could
the
be
wide
good.
receiver coach.
He could end up being good. Special teams coach is better for a head coach.
Yeah, that's the
because
point I
they
was trying to
interact
get
with
at.
everybody
But still, he was the wide receiver coach of
and special teams both.
Right. So, how many rings have the Chiefs won in the last decade?
0. But at
How
the
many
same
rings
time,
have the Patriots won in the last
at the same
decade?
time, these guys have had head coaching experience.
How
and the
many
guy who
good
got hired
coaches
has
have come
not.
out from under Bill Belichick?
Yeah.
Bill Belichick is 14-13 against the people that he has had on his roster, or past players, or
But that
or
doesn't
past,
being.
in other words, they know how to coach, and they know how to coach against Bill Belichick. And if Bill Belichick is the gold standard of coaching, and they're beating, and they are 50-50 against him, they must be doing something right.
That's a stat that's not indicative of me being a good coach. It's, I'm pretty good against this one coach. None of these guys...
Who happens to be the best.
Sure, but I can
good
beat...
against the best.
If I'm the 100th player in the world, but somehow I've beaten Roger Federer 4 out of 7 times, that doesn't make me... I'm still the 100th best player in the world.
Sure, but did Mike Vrabel outcoach Belichick?
He might be a good coach.
But did he outcoach him in this last game?
Yeah. But that, again, you're taking a very small sample size, whereas for the most part, none of these coaches pan out. None of them last.
Right.
I can't even think of most of the names. Vrabel's the one where we're like, oh, maybe this guy will be good, and Patricia maybe will be good, but they were still the third worst team in the league.
Flores was a coach for the Patriots.
Flores could be good.
Dolphins were terrible, and they won more games than they had any business winning when they were allegedly supposed to be tanking. So, like, he's, like, people, it's weird when people say, like, oh, well, Belichick's disciples haven't really coached that well, when Belichick is still winning titles. So it's like, just because you can't beat this guy in the big game doesn't mean, like...
No, they don't, like... I can't think of Bill Belichick guys who make the playoffs consistently.
Right.
Like, there's no coach that came out from under Bill Belichick, because the idea is this guy does everything.
Right.
Andy Reid, Mike McCarthy, the Cowboys coach, who I don't think is as good as everybody else, but he gets a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure he's an Andy Reid guy. Mm-hmm. They have the coaching trees.
Right.
Like, I coached under this guy, and I got a Bill Parcells, amazing coaching tree. Sean Payton, Bill Belichick, whoever the fuck. Andy Reid, good coaching tree. Eric Bieniemy's under him. Bill Belichick's coaching tree, for the most part, as of now, hasn't panned out.
Mm-hmm.
The best we've done is Mike Vrabel so far.
Mm-hmm.
So just because he coached under Bill Belichick doesn't mean he's going to be a good coach. Like, this guy who's the head coach of the Bengals, they went 1-15, and he was under McVay, and that's why he got the job. But, like, that doesn't make you a good
That's
coach.
usually what happens, though. Like, for most football teams, most football programs, if you're successful, they want to pluck everybody from your staff. Like, the same guy, what was the guy who coached
I'm saying that makes sense. It makes sense to me. You want someone from a winning pedigree.
Right.
So, like, I don't knock the Giants.
No, I don't think people were knocking the Giants for hiring Joe Judge. I don't think they were at all. I just think the fact that they picked them so quickly without, I guess, doing due diligence and doing what the Rooney Rule was
the Giants did. I think the overall point is...
Aren't the Giants Rooneys?
No, that's the Steelers. That's the Mara family.
Yeah, but the Mara and the Rooney family are related.
They might be related.
Are they?
Yes.
Oh, shit. Well,
I don't think the Giants did anything wrong. I think they interviewed
I don't think they did anything
I think
wrong.
the problem is, like, the bullshit interview, like the Cowboys.
The rule's kind of bullshit.
Marvin Lewis is a bullshit interview just to meet the rule.
Right.
Like, at least take it seriously.
Right.
That's, I think, the point. I don't have a problem with the rule because I think it could be beneficial. But if you're going to be like, hey, just get a fucking black guy in here, let's give him a bullshit interview.
I mean, it makes way more sense if you get someone you are potentially interested in, because it only helps your team. My biggest issue with the criticism of the Rooney Rule is it assumes that people are more racist than they are interested in winning. And if we know anything about the NFL, is they will look past so many character flaws for the sake of winning. You beat your wife, you kick her in a fucking hotel, you'll be on a team in fucking 3 months. Okay, if you shoot up a strip
club, I don't know, man. I mean, that was definitely the case a couple years ago. Like,
Tyreek Hill, he played this year or no?
He did.
Okay,
but Antonio Brown didn't. He had a tryout. He didn't play. Kaepernick
Antonio
didn't play.
Brown did play this year.
He played one game,
and then he
had to work out with the Saints a couple weeks ago.
And then he was an asshole.
They had that's my point, though. They won't overlook everything.
But they were willing to overlook a rape accusation.
I don't think that takes away from his point. His point is, like, the NFL is much more of a meritocracy than people are realizing. I have this debate with Brian all the time, where I think on some level, race could play into it in a way you don't realize.
Race plays a part of everything. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And racism is in everything, and it plays a part in everything. I'm not discrediting that at all. What I'm saying is people's desire to win will overwhelm their feelings about the color of a coach's skin. If they truly believe that a coach can help them be victorious, they will overlook their own racism to hire him, just like they will overlook a player's abuse of his wife so that they can get that Super Bowl. So I don't think it's intrinsically tied into racism. And I think the Rooney Rule, what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to check implicit bias. Unconscious bias, right? Which are, you might not think a black guy is going to be a good coach, but we're going to put him in front of you anyway.
Yes.
And then he could potentially win you over. And then because you're so obsessed with winning, you'll put aside your views of black guys as coaches so that you can get that win. So that's why I like the Rooney Rule.
I like it too.
For that reason.
Yeah, I like the rule too. My thing is, I don't know if, I think the rule was reactionary at first. I feel like if there wasn't something in place before, and I'm going to mess up details because I don't know the specifics of it, but there was something going on before the rule was implemented where motherfuckers wasn't getting calls at all. Wasn't even getting talked to,
right?
As far as being head coaches. So I think it was they were overcompensating for all the shit that they missed out on.
Well, that can't be the case because if the same amount of coaches existed back then and they exist now, then the same amount of calls must have been going out.
Well, of course, but I'm saying like it's the same way in the when Kaepernick first started kneeling down, right?
Right.
And they felt like, well, we have these demands, and some of the demands are like, well, we want money donated to this, that, and the third. Looking with no bias specs on everything, the NFL has put in more, programs to benefit inner city, relations and race relations since Kaepernick was kneeling.
Right.
Now, because I don't know the specific details of what led to the Rooney Rule, I can only assume that also happened when it came to black head coaches and black people in coaching positions.
My only issue is just do it better. And there's a story out there that the Cowboys actually wanted to hire Marvin Lewis, and maybe they're just that fucking stupid that you want a guy who didn't win a playoff game in 9 years. But like Eric Bieniemy, the offense is creative. The head coach, who everybody says is brilliant, says this is a fucking guy. Yeah. He's going to be great. He's had coaches underneath him that have done very well. Just interview that guy.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to give Marvin Lewis an interview, the Giants also, I think they interviewed Bieniemy too, but their first interview was the Cowboys defensive backs coach, Chris Richard, who's a black guy.
Yeah.
The secondary sucked a dick all year.
Yeah.
Don't give that guy a look just because of a Rooney Rule. That's actually like more racist to me to give a shitty black guy an interview just to check a box than it is to say, oh, here's a qualified black guy. We should give him a serious look.
I agree.
Because McCarthy apparently, for the Cowboys coach, apparently fucking destroyed his interview. Was incredible, apparently. Still, give this other guy who is checks all the boxes, give him the chance.
And to be fair, I think you're right in the sense that people may have overreacted in the first couple of weeks because
That's what they do.
Yeah, the hot coordinator is Robert Saleh or whatever, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. And clearly they're still playing. So they're not going to give permission for you to talk to a guy.
No, you should get permission.
I mean, I'm certain like certain teams didn't want to give permission so far.
I don't think he got called either. That's another one. Because I remember when the Cowboys were actually good, which is 30 years ago or whatever. Yeah. Norv Turner, all these defensive I didn't know how any of it worked. I'm just watching football at the time. But I remember the Cowboys were going to the Super Bowl, and on the way, the defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator got head coaching interviews. So it's like, oh, wow, I guess that's a thing that can happen. And then that was like an adult lesson for me as a kid. Right. Oh, you're always allowed to go get a better job if your employer gives a fuck about you. So I think the fact that he didn't get calls, I don't know if he'll be good, but you got to see what the I mean, the Niners defense.
Yeah, the Niners defense are.
I don't know how much credit you want to give him, but you can give him a call. Right. Especially if there's a rule in place for this. I don't have a problem with a rule. I think James Harrison went on and started this with like.
It was Stephen A.
Fine.
It was Stephen A. He went for it, and then he went for it right after, what is it, Rivera? What's his name?
Ron Rivera is
Joe
black.
Judge.
Yo, so
it was right after Joe Judge.
No, but Ron Rivera got the head coaching job with the Redskins.
Yeah.
Is he black?
Yeah.
No.
I think he's half black or something.
He's Cuban or some shit. He's like Latino.
He's a man of color.
Whatever. He's a man of, so it's not like men of color aren't getting. This is where I call the bullshit on the diversity thing, right? Diversity is like and don't get me wrong, I actually agree with the strategy. The game of life is acquire resources. That's the game of life. And you require them at all costs, right? We found a cool term where black people and other minorities who haven't been in this situation where they could acquire resources have found a way to leverage the thing that held them down and actually use it in a way to acquire resources, right? Like, you must be diverse because diversity is good. Now, as far as I'm concerned,
it's actually impressive to flip leverage like that.
It's amazing. It's a brilliant tool. And if I would say to all my black friends or any minority friends, use it so you can acquire resources. Get it. The game is acquire resources. And when you have the resources, the game is keep them. And when you don't have them, the game is get them. That's just how the shit goes, right? So it's why Republicans that are rich want to keep their money and Democrats that are poor want to get their money, money, right? It's just, we should have more taxes so we can get some money. Okay. So I think it's a great, go for it. It's a good strategy. You have one life. Try to get it. But when we go, diversity is important and representation is important, the reason I can't take it seriously is because I know it's fucking bullshit.
You know what you're doing.
I know. I see through it, right? Yeah. So it's like all the black athletes are like, we need representation. They're never saying we need Indians. They're never saying we need Asians. Like, Tyler Perry's like...
Some do, but it never goes to the front.
I've never had a black person legitimately give a fuck about anything about Indians or whatever.
And then they'll go, well, we need to work on us first before we do it. And then so you just go, wait a minute, so it's okay to just care about your race? Well,
my people back home, poor as fuck. What I'm saying is this. I'm saying use it, but you're not fooling me. And I think a lot of people are drinking the Kool-Aid and they actually believe it because they're not really thinking about the game and what's going on. I just see the game. So I'm like, use it, play the game, get your money, bro. Get your fucking money any way you can. Never once in my life have I ever thought about diversity. Will you look at this room? Look at this room. Never once in my life have I hired anybody for diversity. Never once have I had a friend for diversity. We got a Mexican doing the fucking...
Is Ecuador... What year?
Nicaraguan. We are Nicaraguan, right? But think about what we have going. It's not like we have the white guy doing the tech shit like the Joe Budden podcast. Right. You know what I mean? We got a Nicaraguan doing the tech shit.
We never try to check boxes.
A black would do it. An Indian.
But it's not fair to assume that's what they do too either.
What?
It's not fair to assume like, we only got the white guy to do the tech for our podcast because he's the white guy.
No, it's fair to assume a lot of people do it. We don't need to name specific names or whatever.
We know all the time people who got the white people in the back end doing all the shit.
And actually, sometimes it's a corporate mandate to have minority hires.
Right.
And we as minorities love it because it gives us jobs.
What an amazing leverage point. Like how you flip the exact thing that held you down and make it bring you up. Like that's a genius move.
The thing is, you're a critical thinker. You're a critical thinker and you understand why people would do that. That makes sense. A lot of motherfuckers don't do that for that reason though.
Wait, say it again.
A lot of people don't do that for that reason.
What do you think?
So when you're talking about, I'm going to use the fact that I'm black. I'll just use me as an example.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the fact that I'm black to get a lot of corporate opportunities with people because I know they need people of color.
Right.
I'm not doing that because I don't ever feel like I deserve an opportunity over somebody who's been doing this for
But you're not going to turn it down.
Years. But I'm not going to turn it down. But at the same time, I do this shit because I want to do it. I'm not using my diversity as leverage.
But you won't turn it down. So for example, if ESPN goes, hey man, we would love to hire you. And then you found out through the grapevine, it's like they want to increase the diversity that they have over at ESPN. ESPN does a good job with diversity, I think. But it's like, and you heard that was the impetus of looking for you. You were Rooney ruled into the ESPN, right?
You're right.
You wouldn't say no.
But here's my thing. A lot of times for those companies, they know it benefits them long-term as well. It benefits themselves long-term as well.
Why does it benefit
Because they need diversity also.
Why?
Because they want to get more people. They want to acquire assets, just like you said. But if you're only
diversity doesn't mean that more people are going to watch. Like nobody watched the show.
Of course it does.
Nobody watched Jamel and what's the other dude?
Andrew, I'm gonna be honest with you. If we're doing a show and as cultured as you are, you're talking about Indian shit, and if you don't have an Indian guy to check you about certain shit, it wouldn't be as successful.
Son,
if we had a black guy, if you're talking about black
people, the biggest podcast in the world is Joe Rogan and a white assistant.
But that's because Joe Rogan has.
And a lot of white
guests. It's a great fucking show.
Whenever
he's done a lot of great shit.
Whenever I'm talking to people in the crowd, Akaash ain't there to co-sign it.
Oh no, I'm not saying he needs to co-sign it.
I'm talking to people right in the crowd, and then they're doing it. It's different when they know that you're authentic. There's a different thing when people know that you're coming from the right place, right? So it's like I can talk to people truthfully. Even this conversation, most white people couldn't say things I'm saying right now. Not. But they understand.
And this leads to the Chappelle show I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But we'll get to it. But it's like because they don't trust that person is speaking to them honestly. If you want someone to speak to you honestly, you have to accept honesty.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I know a lot of white people, when they speak to minorities, they're speaking to them in a way that they feel will make them comfortable. When you get to know me, you start to realize, he's treating me just like another person.
Yeah.
He's not speaking me through a black filter or an Indian filter or a Nicaraguan filter or a Puerto Rican black filter. Right? But it takes seconds to get there. I bet there are people listening to this podcast right now when they first heard me, maybe on Brilliant Idiots, they're like, I don't like this motherfucker.
Oh yeah,
and
that happens
eventually they're
all
like,
the time.
oh, wait a minute. He's actually talking to me regular.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not saying that I'm not saying that this thing is easy to get to, but when you get to, you actually get truth from somebody, you really trust it and you believe it because truth is rare. You know, all I'm saying is when it comes to the diversity thing, milk it, use it to get to the top, use it to get some fucking stake in this world, use it to get your fucking resources, and then pull up anybody you want to pull up from the ground up. For me, the people I pulled up, it's never been about your race. It's always been about your skill, right? But I'm in the position to do that because I've had stuff.
Right.
But if you have nothing, if it's diversity that helps you get up, then great. If it's not diversity, if it's just, I don't know, building your own Black Wall Street, whatever, use that. Whatever it is, the game is get the resources and then help those people you believe in.
Our issue with the flipping the leverage is we just see through it.
I just see through it.
And I'm not saying, and there's times where I argue that I think race is a factor. And I think in head coaching, race might be a factor.
Sure.
Big factor. But like James Harrison was the one I saw talking about it. And I like James Harrison. But he's picking on Matt Rule, who's the Carolina Panthers' new head coach, got a huge contract. And he goes at his overall record. His overall record as a coach is 95 and 85 or whatever.
It was first 3 years in Baylor, it was 18
What
and 20.
he neglects to leave out, what he neglects to mention, I thought Matt Rule, I think he's going to be great. I might be wrong. I think he's going to be fucking
That's
great.
who you wanted.
That's who I wanted for the Cowboys.
Right.
And this is why I particularly noticed it. He took over Baylor after the head coach of Baylor just let like 5 people rape women and then covered it up. That program was toxic. Nobody wanted to go there. And even if they had a name, they're not getting any 5A athletes. So his first year, he went 1-11.
Yeah.
Everybody left. Second year, he went 6-10. Third year, this small ass school that gets no 5A recruits went 12-2.
Yeah.
Lost to Oklahoma twice by 1 score. That's fucking impressive.
Yeah.
But if you want to manipulate things and make it a racial issue, you can say his overall record is barely above average.
Right.
And you took out all context just so people can, who are more easily manipulated, to be like, yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And that's the problem sometimes with a narrative, is that when people don't see it as marketing and they drink the Kool-Aid, they'll start justifying it any way they can. Like, you look at these stupid ass blogs like Jezebel and shit. The editor of the blog just goes into the office and goes, Ryan Phillippe's sexist, prove it. Right?
Yeah.
They start with, this is how fucked up it is. And if you want to go into any situation, you want to go, this is racism, prove it. You will find it, because there is racism or race at bare minimum,
in
race
everything.
in every single thing in our lives.
Right.
It is, and it's actually natural to our brains.
Yeah.
We filter the world like that.
You have to for survival.
So
especially in this
So
country.
when we say it's not race, it doesn't mean that race doesn't play a part, because it is. What we're saying is, at how many parts race is it versus how many parts situation, how many parts wins. You know what I'm saying? Like, if this cocktail, how much of it is racism? And we think that, I think that James Harrison, I think you think, obviously, James Harrison is overestimating the amount of parts in the cocktail that are just raw racism from the Carolina Panthers, who just had a black head coach, or a head coach of color.
Yeah. Who stayed for 9
Panthers?
years, Rivera, who stayed for 9 years and made the playoffs in 3 of them. That's not a good percentage. They got a black quarterback that they gave every chance to, who I love. They still might give him another chance.
Yeah, I think he's gonna start when they come back. But I here's the thing. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Black quarterback, real quick. Black quarterback, they took number 1 overall.
Right.
They had the number 1 overall.
Well, the motherfucker
pick.
was undeniable coming out of college.
They
This is after JUCO. This is after like the arrest shit.
They denied Lamar Jackson.
You're right.
And Cam Newton had more character flags than Lamar Jackson.
You're right, but Cam won a national title and a Heisman.
Sure.
And
Nobody's a bigger fan than Cam Newton, or at least was. I mean, he's kind of, has.
I'm worried about
we'll
him.
see if he's healthy. We'll see if he's healthy.
I was his number 1
I'm a
co-signer
fan.
from Rip.
Nobody's been a bigger fan than us on this show.
But it is what it is. They could have easily not taken him number 1.
But you do remember there was a time where the same way some people, I'm not saying all people, and the reason why the Rooney Rule was put in, the same way people look at head coaches were the same way people looked at black quarterbacks for a while. They were just like, they just don't have the mental capacity, and yada, yada, yada.
And
you're a critical thinker, so you don't think like that. I understand where you're coming from. Doesn't mean you are the way. If everybody thought like you wouldn't be unique. And you're extremely unique.
Right. 100%.
Everybody else that looks at this rule and sees it and tries to use it to either defend why they don't pick a certain coach of color doesn't think the way you think. Doesn't think the way you think.
Yeah.
a lot of times the same way they look at quarterbacks is the same way they look at some coaches, you know? But at the end of the day, I like I was saying before, I'm really glad we're having this conversation because I watched the Chappelle
yes, PBS
Mark
thing.
Twain
Beautiful.
Yes.
Did you see his speech?
award.
I didn't see his, but Neil's was really funny.
I need to
Neil's
watch Neil's.
speech
You
was
should
great.
watch
Neil's was
Chappelle's.
great.
Right.
Chappelle's is like beautiful.
Is it?
Chappelle's was beautiful.
How long is
He
it? Should we
defends
watch
stand-up.
it?
It's 6 minutes. We
Yeah.
can't watch it here. I think it'd be too long to watch now
It's
here.
PBS. It's public broadcasting. No,
No, meaning like
Time.
would it
Oh,
would
right,
it bore
right,
the people?
Oh, gotcha. But he said something so
Akaash is
poignant.
saying that we're more interesting than Dave Chappelle.
Bro, they found us
There you
more
go.
interesting than Eddie Murphy.
Hey, I'll take it.
That
I'll
is
take
true.
it.
We tried to listen to.
I just didn't want another Eddie Murphy moment.
But
If
he-
you want to take a baby bladder break and watch, I'm with it.
Go for it.
But
he said something that was so poignant, and why I think this show is so important is he was talking about how he knows the reason why stand-up is such an American form of art. Like it's so important.
The most
especially-
American form of
It's
art.
probably one of the most American form of art because you have to tell the truth. If you're good at it, if you do it right, you have to tell the truth. And people that try to stop that, like I said, taking away any other agenda that you have, you're stopping truth tellers. Period. That's what you're doing. Chappelle said, he said something about having conversations with racist comics all the time. And he's saying something, and he's like, yeah, he's killing in there. It's like, nah, that nigga means that shit. Like, he really is fucking racist. But he
You'll
says,
see the comic on stage, Nick DiPaolo, and he'll be like, oh, he means that shit.
yeah, and then he's the
He's saying
thing.
Nick DiPaolo. In
No.
it? I mean,
did.
that's who it is.
That's who it is.
Probably. But he'll see us, as in like, you know, the general public argue,
Yeah.
and we just watch. Y'all just watch as comics. Whereas comics have this thing where they can actually talk and actually hear people. And because they respect the art of stand-up comedy so much, they can respect the way that you dress up your racism that is digestible for people. You know what I mean? Like, he said this before where he feels like he's more comic than black man sometimes because when Kramer was screaming N-word, he was like, damn, Kramer, it's a tough set hanging there, buddy. You know what I'm saying? So I thought it was really dope because like I'm not a stand-up comic, but I feel like I'm in the world of stand-up comics.
Right.
And I could totally understand why I can look up to a guy like Dave Chappelle and idolize him, even though I've never done a set in my life, just because the way he fights for truth and comedy and the way people are just he's just a great thinker. And I think you said this before, where he's just not even just one of the great stand-up comedians of all time, just great speakers.
He's one of the
thinkers.
greatest public speakers ever.
Watch the
And-
speech if you get a chance. It's
It's
like
like-
he defends comedy, speaks on behalf of comedy. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like needed.
Yeah.
And it's essentially what we're doing is just he's doing it on like the Ricky Gervais thing. Right guy, right
Messenger,
platform.
message, platform.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really what it
it's-
comes down
It's
to.
fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was even thinking, as Kaz was talking, the reason I think we don't like a lot of the social justice comics is not because of what they believe. It's because I feel like they're disrespecting comedy. You are not using this to tell your truth. You are using this as propaganda. You are not using this to get laughs. You are using this to get claps for your message. This isn't a place for your message. This is a place to respect comedy and be funny. You got a message I don't agree with, but it's funny,
Yeah.
bruh.
Yeah.
Here, two things with that. So you said you're using stand-up comedy
Yeah.
to get across your message,
Yeah.
right? They're fraudulent in two ways. Because if you really wanted to help a cause, would you go on stage in the back of a bar with people watching the playoffs in the front and talking and then
It's true.
pontificate about the environment, where the fuck you're talking about?
true.
No, you wouldn't. So not only are you using stand-up comedy to push the agenda of this cause that you truly don't care about, because if you did, you'd be on the field actually trying to help out.
Yeah.
You're using the cause
Yeah. Very
as
true.
well. So what it really comes down to is you're empty, like most of us, and you need to get filled, but you're not willing to work as hard. So you're going to the lowest common denominator to get. It's hack. It's
Yeah.
the reason why we hate a hack joke, because it's easy. It is easy to go up there and say something that everybody in the audience is supposed to agree with in public and then just get claps
Yeah.
for it.
Right.
It is hack, and you are hacking your way to fill that void that we all have, and that's what we hate, because we have that void too,
Yeah.
but we're going through a grueling fucking process of trying to tell truth and getting lashings and beatings on the fucking way. So when we see someone take an easy route, Like, fuck you, bro. You just ran off the side of the rainbow trail in Mario Kart? Fuck you, son.
It's
Go the whole way.
It's corny to say, but we love this we love this. This is our art.
Yeah.
This is, I'm religious.
And I'll
this is
defend it.
religion for me.
Yep. Yeah,
Comedy's
like-
just as much religion as Hinduism. So when I see you putting your propaganda above stand-up,
You're ISIS.
you are not using real shit. You are taking
You
this
are
beautiful
using
faith of mine
our beautiful
and
thing.
perverting it for your own personal gain.
That's
And
right.
I'll defend
You're
it.
comedy ISIS.
Chappelle said that shit, and I agree with
That's
it 1000%.
Yeah.
Like, I'll defend that shit.
We just said it way better than
to
Chappelle.
the day. I'll defend it to the day I die, bro. Like, I may not agree with you said it before. I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend your right to say it to the death of you.